I always thought that phrasal verbs were verb plus preposition. But it turns out that no, they're not. Sometimes the second word in a phrasal verb is a preposition, but other times it's an adverb. But how do we know which is which? Well, let's talk. So, a phrasal verb can be either transitive or intransitive. A transitive phrasal verb is a phrasal verb that requires an object. For example, I can take off my clothes. If I say to you, I'm taking off, without an object, well, you'll be very confused. You'll say, Toby, what are you taking off? And I'll say, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot that take off is a transitive phrasal verb. I'm taking off my clothes. You lucky thing. On the other hand, if a phrasal verb is intransitive, then it can't take an object. An example of this is the phrasal verb take off. Wait, what? Yes, I know, but remember, the same phrasal verb can have multiple meanings, and the meaning can dictate whether that phrasal verb is transitive or intransitive, because, oh my gosh, English is confusing, and I hate it. Take off can mean to remove clothing, but it can also mean beginning to fly. For example, the plane is taking off. When we are using the phrasal verb to take off in this way, there is no object, and so the phrasal verb to take off is intransitive. Got it? Do we understand? Good. Now, to make things even more complicated, a phrasal verb can be either separable or inseparable. If a phrasal verb is separable, then you can separate the verb and the particle and put an object in the middle. So obviously, if a phrasal verb is intransitive, then it cannot be separable because there is no object to put in the middle. So, intransitive phrasal verbs are always inseparable. A transitive phrasal verb could be separable or inseparable, right? Let's go back to our phrasal verb, take off. I can say, I'm taking off my clothes. But I can also say, I'm taking my clothes off. Because to take off is transitive and separable. Oh yeah, and please remember, if the object is an object pronoun, then we must separate the particles and put the object pronoun in the middle. Let me give you an example. I can say, I'm taking off my socks. I can now separate the particles and say, I'm taking my socks off. Now, if I want to replace my socks with an object pronoun, them, then I cannot say, I'm taking off them. No, I must use the separable form. I'm taking them off. Okay? Okay. You also need to remember that just because a phrasal verb is transitive does not mean that it is separable. Let's take the phrasal verb to fall over, for example. I could fall over a rock, but I can't fall the rock over. That's absurd, because the phrasal verb to fall over can be transitive, but it cannot be separable. Okay, so to summarize, we have transitive and intransitive phrasal verbs. All intransitive phrasal verbs are inseparable because we have no object with which to separate the particles, but some transitive phrasal verbs are separable and others are inseparable. If we want to use an object pronoun with a separable transitive phrasal verb, then we need to make sure we put the object pronoun between the particles. It cannot come after the particles. Right? Are we all caught up? I hope we are. Let's continue. This brings us to the final question of this video. How do we know if the second particle, the second word of a phrasal verb is a preposition or an adverb? Now, this gets kind of complicated. It's a joke among teachers that if you don't know what type of word a word is, then just tell the student it's an adverb, because usually it is. Because seriously, these things are so complicated that I don't really think anyone knows what's going on. And if they tell you that they do, then they're probably lying. Anyway, I know exactly what's going on, so let me explain it to you. Phrasal verbs with prepositions are always, always, always transitive. And they are never, never, never separable. Let me show you some examples. She looks after the children. Here, the phrasal verb to look after is transitive. It would make absolutely no sense if I said to you, she looks after. No. Also, it is inseparable. I cannot say, she looks the children after. That makes absolutely no sense at all, and so we can be pretty sure that after in this phrasal verb is a preposition and not an adverb. Another example is the phrasal verb to look for. For example, I'm looking for a new pet cockroach. I cannot tell you I am looking for. That makes no sense. And I cannot say I'm looking a new pet cockroach for, because that also makes no sense. And so we know that for here is a preposition and not an adverb. And the final example I will give you is to come across. To come across requires an object and it is inseparable. I can say, oh look, I've just come across an old jumper. But I cannot say, I've just come across. And I cannot say, I've just come an old jumper across. And so we know that across is a preposition and not an adverb. So, to summarize, if a phrasal verb is transitive and inseparable, then mummy, oh mummy, we have a baby preposition. Now then, how do we know if a phrasal verb contains an adverb? Well, if the phrasal verb is intransitive, then for sure the second particle is an adverb. For example, the phrasal verb sit down. This requires absolutely no object. And so we can be pretty sure that down here is an adverb and not a preposition. And if the phrasal verb is separable, we can also be sure that the second particle is an adverb and not a preposition. For example, the phrasal verb to bring up. I can say, my father brought me up, or my father brought the kids up alone. If we can separate the particles and shove in an object, then boy oh boy, daddy, we have an adverb. Aren't you proud? And finally, did you know that some phrasal verbs contain both an adverb and a preposition? Oh, God. For example, to put up with, or to look down on, or to get on with, or to drop out of, or to come up with. And okay, right, I'm finished giving examples now. All of these are technically intransitive, but all of them also require an object. And yeah, that's absurd. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. They are intransitive because immediately after our main verb, we have an adverb. And then we don't have an object. Instead, we've got a preposition. But then after that preposition, we do need an object for the phrasal verb to make sense. So it goes verb, adverb, preposition, object. Marvelous. Do you know any more of these? Let me know in the comments. And with that, we are finished. That was literally everything that you need to know about phrasal verbs, and by gosh, I hope that I've helped. If you liked the video, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment down below. My name is Toby, and this was Smash English.